Hey, everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ podcast. I am your host, Mike Musto, together today with Bryan McTaggart and Evan Perkins, both of which are Hemmings rock stars, both of which are muscle car guys. Bryan owns a Charger, Evan owns a GTO, but today we are talking about the new 2024 Dodge Charger that was just released. If you're into cars, you probably saw the release video. I managed to do a post on Instagram where I got over 300 comments telling me what a jackass I was because of I actually liked it. And so we're here to discuss that, discuss the car, discuss the impact that it has or will have as a quote unquote electric muscle car. But there's a bunch of different versions of this thing, and they kind of dabbled and gave something for everybody. So, guys, how are you doing today? Okay.
Doing good, but glad to be here.
Okay. So, Dodge released this car earlier this week. And what did they do? They gave us a lot to digest. They gave the audience a lot to digest. They gave diehard fans a lot to digest. We have a new Dodge Charger, brand new silhouette, all new sheet metal, all new everything from the ground up. It is coming to us in both an EV version and a gas version. It is coming to us in both a two-door and a four-door. It is coming to us in a variety of different power levels. But yet the world seemed to lose their mind in a bad way. Even though I think Dodge as a company tried to give everybody what they wanted. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the idea of an EV charger. Let's talk about the idea of, can an EV be a muscle car first and foremost? What do y'all think?
Well, I think if you're going to name an EV, there's no better name than Charger, right? Like right off the bat.
Right.
That's it. They nailed it 50, almost 60 years before they even thought that was a possibility. But it's a great name, and I think the idea is a marketing idea, and it's just that if we're trying to give a soul to an EV, let's try to give it a name that people identify with as a car that has consistently, even for the last 6 decades, had a lot of soul, right? It's always been a passionate enthusiast car. I get where people go, well, that's not my Charger, but at the same time, Dodge is the only company that ever made a Charger, and I'm a big believer that if you made a thing, you get to name all the subsequent things, right? Your thing. Nobody walks over to you and says, "Hey, is that your kid?" And you're like, "Yeah, that's my kid." Like, "Oh, what's your kid's name?" "Steve." "He's Chet now." And it's like, no, they made the thing. They get to name the thing. So it's not the Charger that we've all come to know, but they're the only company that gets to name a Charger. Just like Chevrolet made the Corvette, they get to name every other Corvette, even if the engine's middle, still a Corvette because they said so.
Right. Very true.
And
Bryan, what do you think?
so the thing about this is that it's a nameplate that has such history with enthusiasts, and for good reason. And I'm going to completely attack the Mopar people here on this. They get really defensive when it comes to their nameplates.
Oh.
They also get really blind when it comes to the history of these nameplates.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the Challenger, you'll hear praise for the 7074, and rightfully so. Occasionally, somebody will remember the one from the late 50s, and obviously the modern cars have their following. Notice
Uh-huh.
you never hear anything about 1978 to 1983.
Nope.
Ever.
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 I want to
Like
buy one
they
of those
just,
and take it to a show just to see what happens. I'll park it next to a 70.
yeah, they just wiped it out of the
Mhm.
history books.
And as such, the same thing happens with Charger. Yes, you all remember 66 to 74 pleasantly. You remember the new cars pleasantly. Mike just told you I own a Charger. Yeah, I do. I own a 76, which means it looks like a Chrysler Cadorba. I also don't think you guys are in a rush to restore a 1983 Charger 2 plus or 2.2 anytime soon. Those happened. They're there. It's that kind of thing. And it happened in 06 when the current LH Charger came out. Or LX Charger, excuse me, the rear drive. Um, it's four-door. Oh no,
Right?
this is
Remember
this is a
that?
travesty. Well, never mind the fact that it has a V8 that had at the time 425 horsepower, was stout. Well, never mind that this could fit your entire family, and it still looked properly pissed off. And then all the things start coming out. Nobody really kind of settled on the four-door thing until the Hellcat showed up. But even then, there's still plenty of people who don't like it anyways. So the fact that Dodge went ahead and went, okay, you guys aren't happy with a four-door, here's a two-door back. Some guys like the four-door. We're keeping it. You all are scared of the EV thing. Here's a twin turbo inline six. You understand why the Hemi went away, and I get that. That's fair.
Right.
But here's the biggest engine we got. This is the highest output engine we have available right now, and we're going to stuff it in because you guys freaked out over the EV. They're giving you everything you asked for, and yet you still, you know?
That and that was one of my biggest issues is that they did everything that the public wanted. And I think they're most pissed off that it doesn't have a Hemi in it. Well, like you said, they can't make it. They are literally not allowed to make that engine anymore. Okay.
Mhm.
Enthusiasts
So
understand the landscape of manufacturers wanting to deliver, but being, just bound legally on what they can produce. I mean, the
mhm.
legislation that is legislating out, these engines, nobody's saying, oh, this is cafe, this is this, thing that, we allowed to get through, Congress. Is anyone actually looking at that? Or are they just blaming the manufacturers? Do you think Dodge really said, hey, this Hemi engine that we've sold for the last 15 years and everyone loves and seems to just swallow a 2.6 liter supercharger like no problem? We're just going to shelve this.
Now,
Like
let's get
we're
rid of
just
it.
tired of making it.
Yeah, no, we're making
Yeah.
too much money. Please
Too
stop.
many, too many
Yeah.
blowers. Like
They
we're
could
done.
have sold those for the next 15 years and still sold every one of them that they made. The problem when people have to understand, they're not allowed to. They can't. Okay. So,
The
and here's the other part.
manufacturer who's doing the next best thing. They're still giving us a 550 horsepower gas engine, and
Right?
people are going, that's not good enough. And you're like, I feel so bad for these guys that are beating their heads against a wall, going, we know what you want, and we want to give it to you, and we're not allowed to. And here's the best thing we can do. And they're going, oh, inline sixes suck. And you're like,
Well, here's the thing that really drives me, that pisses me off about Mopar people. Okay. And listen, I love the brand, but I'm not just a Dodge guy. I've got a bunch of other stuff that, dabbles. But here's the thing. I need the Mopar people to, and I'm going to get pissed. Shut up and stop your bitching, okay?
Thank
Because
you.
you turn into a group of just complaining little whiny bitches. And I'm sorry, but enough is enough, guys. Okay? Like, yes, nobody's saying you can't still go out and buy a Hemi powered Charger or Challenger. They've been out there for the last 60 years. Go out and buy an old school Hemi. Go buy a new school Hemi. You can literally go to a dealer lot right now and still buy Chargers and Challengers. You could still buy Hellcats and Demons and Red Eyes and RTs and Scap. They're all still there. They're all still there. So if
Mhm.
you're that pissed off, open your pocketbook and go buy one or shut your mouths.
well, I mean, from a collector car standpoint, this is a blessing to the last generation of V8s.
It totally is.
Congratulations, your Hellcat is worth more now, and that will only continue to go up. And there's still a car out there. Like, look, we all know it's a very uphill battle to try to put a soul into an EV.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from years of a staccato exhausts and just
Correct.
everything that makes a muscle car a muscle car, it is really hard to imbibe a EV vehicle with a
Mm-hmm.
soul, and they're trying to do that. And God bless them for trying to do that. Is it a success in the first round? Hard to say till we drive the thing, but
Right.
they're trying. It could be an amorphous blob that is a Tesla Model 3.
Correct.
They
I
could
mean,
have.
look at what Ford did with the Mach-E. We're going to take that Mustang name, and you guys remember the V8 stick shift car that you love and adore,
Right.
and here's your crossover. And Dodge could have easily done that because crossovers are still the hot commodity in the market. Did you really want a crossover Charger? Do you
Right.
really want
You
all
know
the
that
rumors
that
of Camaro
whole
crossover? No, you didn't.
that
Well,
whole
here's
cross thing they're trying to do. They don't have
right.
there's no business reason for doing that. It doesn't make the car any more efficient. They're trying to create a soul and trying to, keep people like us that enjoy driving cars, that don't want an autonomous
Yeah.
vehicle, that want to still be involved. They're trying to give us something in an environment where it's really difficult to do so. I mean, my hat's off to the guy that was like, let's try to make the thing sound okay,
Well, I agree. And I mean, here's the other part that I like about what they're trying to do. When the Charger came out in '05, right? When the new style came out, you had four doors and people lost their minds. It's a blasphemous thing. As Bryan, as he mentioned, the later Chargers, what was it, Bryan? 77 through 82 or whatever it was
Yeah,
when they did the
75,
crossover.
Well, you have 75 through 78,
Yep.
which are gigantic personal luxury coupes that are built on the 71 platform.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking the deep end of smog era. You're talking more luxury than anything, kind of handled, not really.
Right.
And then you go, the Charger nameplate sleeps for a few years, and then you get it back as an Omni hatchback, a little four-cylinder
Right.
all-wheel drive thing that
Yep.
nobody cared about until Carroll Shelby touched it and put a turbo on it.
Right.
But I,
Exactly. Well,
you know,
but now what I like is that, I think Dodge looked at this thing and they said, okay, we understand the whole 2 and 4 door thing. The 4 door thing, we know there's a market for because they sold millions of them, literally sold million 4 door Chargers. Okay. Um, they not only sold them to fleet services companies, but everybody and their brother has one. And why do they have them? Well, that you can hold 5 people. It's got a great trunk. They drive beautifully. They're just a very great looking and purpose built car that fulfills so many different needs. So with this new car, they said, you know what? We're going to do the same thing. We're still going to give you a 4 door, but we heard you about wanting that 2 door coupe. So we're going to give you that too. Now, as far as utility goes, let's turn it into a hatchback. Now you've got small SUV capability with fold down seats. You've got a ton of room, right? If you talk about cars, like a perfect example is Chevrolet Corvette, okay? And I'm not talking about the new one. I'm talking about up to the C7. The beauty of that car was it was such a hot rod of a car and it was such a great sports car, but you had an enormous amount of room because of the hatchback. And the Charger now, whatever, if you go 2 or 4 door, fulfills that need, okay? Which I really like. But also, they are going back with some nostalgia in here, right? You've got from the EV side, you're going to have the RT and you're going to have the Scat Pack. They're both going to be ungodly fast. We know this. But the
Mhm.
other thing is, look at what owners of Chargers do now, right? If you live where I live in Northern California, these are the sideshow heroes. These cars, I mean, and that's an unfortunate thing, but donuts and burnouts and smoke shows and every hooligan thing you can do with a Hellcat or a Red Eye Charger, you're going to be able to do with this Charger because even though it's released with all-wheel drive, they're not stupid. They said, you know what? It's all-wheel drive, but we can disable it. And if anybody out there watched the release video, what did you see? The entire video was of Kaniskis sliding this thing sideways. The whole video was this car doing rear drive bias, tires on fire, smoke bellowing out of the back. They know what people want. And to Brian's point, they are trying to give it to you. But guys, like, stop the bitching already, you know?
mhm.
I don't get it. I mean, it's just people want to plant their flag in something, but you're like, is it really this? Half the people that hate this car came out of an era where there was a Corvette release with sub 200 horsepower. You
Right.
went from the muscle car era to the slowest cars on the planet, so much so that you boycotted them and liked the thing from yesteryear because you couldn't make power with the thing that just came out. And now here we are on the other side of that circle where you can go get a 400 horsepower, vehicle with instant torque that is, I mean, I remember when I was growing up and the fastest things to 60 were motorcycles. If
Oh,
you
totally. 100%.
if you saw something below 3 seconds to 60, it was either a motorcycle or something with $1 million price tag. And now there are economy cars that will go 0 to 60 sub 3 seconds, and we're upset about it. I just don't. I don't know. I love what I love, and I will always love what I love. But the new thing that's that fast doesn't ruin it for me.
No, for a reference point, I'm 40 right now. The first car I had that I could drive daily, and I want to put that because there's a long list prior to that, was an 87 Monte Carlo SS that was making what 185 horsepower new.
Right.
It felt
Out of
good,
it with big
but
V8 305.
right, and that's a disappointing number from a 5 liter engine. Let's be
A
quite
five is
blunt
a
about it.
disappointing number.
But in '87, that was one of the hottest tickets you could get.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Mike, I know you got a couple years on me. You know very well what it looked like even prior to. It was not a pleasant landscape to be in.
No, I mean, when we were in high school, right? If you had something with over 150 horsepower, you were doing okay, right?
Mhm.
I mean, and this is where kind of, the imports started to come in too. This is where you had cars like the 300ZX and the Toyota Super Turbo and things like that, right?
Even
And
that, yeah, like
Volkswagen, the
Supra.
Rabbit GTI, things like
Mhm.
that. The tables were starting to turn a little bit. But it's what we had. And even if you had an old muscle car, right? Even if you had like, thank like when Ford when they in when the Ford the Mustang GT came out with the 5 liter, right?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden it went to EFI, which I think was in 86. Now you had 200 plus horsepower. You had 300 pound-feet of torque. You had something that would rip the back wheels off the same way it did 15 years earlier,
Right.
right? And people kind of forget that everything is cyclical. And now the technology has shifted to the point where even if you're looking at it, whether you like EVs or you don't like EVs, you have to respect what they do. Okay. And now I live close to Sonoma Raceway. We go to the Wednesday night drifts and drags. Last year we went up there and a guy pulled up in a Lucid Air. Okay. This guy pulled to the stop, right up to the lights, hit it. He ran sub nines on street tires. And everybody just went, oh my God.
And
But
it's the automotive equivalent of saying, please pass the salt. There's no violence to it at all.
none. But here's the thing. I want to talk about this also. Dodge, the biggest problem with the EV, and Evan talked about this, right, was the soul. The thing when the Lucid did that pass was that as soon as it left the lights, you could turn around and walk away because you could ignore it. You didn't hear
The
it.
loudest part of the pass is the VHT going down the track.
You're so spot on with that. And everybody is bitching about, well, they're having this, and I get it, it's a gimmick, right? The Fradsonic chambered exhaust and everything. But I do know for a fact that it is an actual exhaust system. People are they're like, that's a gimmick, that's a this, that's a that. I mean, it is. But the fact of the matter is, they also understand that they equate sound with power. They equate sound with fun. So they're trying to give that to the people.
Is it any different than what Ford did with the sound tube and the EcoBoost in
No,
the Mustang? I mean, it's
No,
just
not at all.
no.
it's
No.
not
Every car that has piped in exhaust music, it's the
it's not
same.
exhaust. It's just an experience. The same way you get the home cinema, right? Like the idea is to make you
Nailed
feel.
it.
So if it makes you feel a certain way and you enjoy the collective experience of man, machine, road, turning,
Hmm.
braking, then it's a win. I mean,
I think you just nailed it, Evan. I think it's the experience. I think that's the best way to say it. Because we all know, right? We've all been in our cars sitting at a light, and all of a sudden something pulls up to you and goes, "Bah, bah, 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 bah," and you turn and you're like, the hell was that?
Mhm.
Does it matter? Are you going to think anything less of it if you turn around and it is a new EV and it's making that sound? Is it manufactured? Well, sure, but it's still sound and it still evokes that emotion you're still going to turn around. And then I got news, when they put their foot down, they're going to leave you like you would chain to a post, right? Because of the instantaneous torque. So you got to balance it out.
I mean, Brian and I came from Holly, and we did this event up at Sonoma that was exclusively for
I was there.
voltage. And we had Randy Popes taking hot laps and shoving people in these Model 3s and lapping the course. Nobody got out with a frown. There was not a single person that didn't go, "Oh wow, I didn't expect that." I mean, they
And
are fun. It just I've never been on something with four wheels that I really couldn't have fun. Obviously, there's a scale of some
Yeah.
things are more fun than the other, but it's a car and it's fast and it has torque. And Dodge's version is going to expand on that with all of the things that we're hoping for from a normal driving experience. If you could wrap that into one nice, tidy package, I don't get where so much hate comes from.
I don't either. And it's interesting. Like you guys know, like my daily is my old 96 Bronco. That thing couldn't be slower. I mean, it doesn't go anywhere. It's also, it's a stock exhaust system, which means it's silent. When it's the stock, you can't hear it. And I'm to the point where I'm like, I think I'm going to put a pipe on this thing just to get a little bit of sound out of that. Right.
Mhm.
I know that thing is not going to go any faster. It's still going to be dead slow, but I still want that feeling of I'm driving this kind of
analog.
big, this analog feeling, but I'm still driving this big burly looking truck. It should have sound to it, right?
Mhm.
If you are advertising something as a muscle car, it should have sound to it because they do sound and performance go hand in hand for the most part with these cars. But what I also like is that we are getting that ICE version next year. And that ICE version is still going to be great. Like, if I don't know if you guys have, but if you've ever gotten behind the wheel of one of the new Grand Wagoneers with the 500, I think it's 510 horsepower turbo
Mhm.
six, That is a 6,000 pound truck. And Jesus, does that thing move? I mean,
Mhm.
that thing, boogie. So people are not going to be lacking for power. They're not going to be lacking for performance. So,
I mean, we
That,
have an
that brings,
American derived 2JZ, and people are upset about it somehow.
and
But
it's
this
funny you
engine
brought that
is,
up because
I
my
mean,
back,
go ahead,
I've
Ron.
I've driven JDM imported vehicles, a Toyota Crown and a Toyota Aristo with modified 2JZs. And anybody who thinks that an inline six with a hairdryer attached to it won't do it for them, I have some very surprising news for you. It will
yeah,
do it in ways you never expected.
I agree. Well, do you think the biggest thing is that because a lot of the comments that I got, I mean, aside from I was an asshole, um, were, it can't be a muscle car if it's got a six in it. And I always go back, listen, perfect car, right? Buick Grand National. There's not a person on the planet. If you say, well, is the Buick Grand National a muscle car?
Yeah,
Absolutely is. Of
Yeah, no
course it
question.
is. Right?
it,
Is the,
funny because the recipe for it is the same recipe Dodge is up against a wall with now. We can't
correct.
build a V8 right now. We can't.
Well,
We're
exactly.
legislated out.
I understand.
Buick couldn't do a V8 that would make that kind of power that would pass emissions in that era because they didn't have the technology. We crept up on the technology and emissions crept past it. And now we're back and having the same conversation. And they're taking the same route of let's still try to deliver this soulful, powerful, enthusiast car. The best we can do is 3-ish liters and a couple turbos. And here's the power number. And people go, wow, I wish it was a V8. It's like, the
A
why?
lot of
How?
it is the kickback from the current scene, which is you don't buy the EcoBoost Mustang, you have to get the 5.0. You don't buy the V6 Challenger Charger, you must get a Hemi at the minimum.
Right.
There's a bit of that to it, and I understand that to a degree because they're even with the EcoBoost, they're still not that big of a push towards performance six cylinders. They never really did that,
Right.
which is sad because I'm a fan of the Camaro's twin turbo six. I prefer it over the 6.2
It's
actually.
great. It's
It's a
fantastic.
fantastic engine, but nobody ever kind of angled that. They just said, "Oh, we have a V6 offering, we have a four-cylinder offering." Ford
Right.
To
kind
your
of
point,
tried
Ryan, like,
and didn't.
that's an enthusiast battle cry, right?
Right.
You don't buy the EcoBoost Mustang, but millions of people do. And
Mhm.
if the whole market existed just because of the things that people like us like, there wouldn't be a market. What are
Correct.
we, 5%, 10%?
Yeah.
We should honestly, at the end of the day, be grateful they still even build cars for us at all because we're not supporting the market. That four-cylinder Mustang does, that V6 Camaro does. Those are the people that are buying in bulk and actually paying the bills and keeping the lights on. The fact that we get enthusiast cars, that somebody that's building an EV goes, let me try to make it sound good, or let me try to put a big enough AC motor in the back and front of this thing that it makes
Mhm.
600 power. There's no reason for that. You know how many more miles that car would get per charge with a 100 horsepower motor?
Of
That's
course.
the fact
Yeah.
that it's happening, it's for people that are the minority, like us, the enthusiasts, is amazing. And I mean, there are prayers that need to be said before bed that is still a thing.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that pisses me off the most is that most of the peanut gallery that chimes in has no intention of ever buying these cars. Right? They want to bitch, they want to moan, they want to tell you how much of an idiot you are because you like something. And we're in a different position than most people because we work in the automotive world, right? So if I come out and I say I like something, then I'm instantly getting paid by that company. If I come out and then I say I hate something, well, then I'm just an idiot because I don't understand what the product is. So there is no way. And all of these opinions are just that. They're opinions. Nobody has driven this car yet. Nobody. Not one member of the public has driven this car yet. So, is the car going to be a good machine? That I'll reserve it until I actually drive it, and I
We
have a
don't know
feeling
yet.
yeah, I mean, I'll probably be one of the first to drive it. I'm looking forward to it. But here's the thing: it's so big, it's so heavy, guys. Did you see how fast the Lucid Air was? Did you see how good they are, how well they handle? Have you looked at the Tesla Plaid? Have you seen how well it handles at 5,500 pounds? If this car is 6,000 pounds or 59, who cares? Who cares? Look at they've also gone, and knowing these guys, they've taken everything they learned with suspension and they've just doubled down on it. When you look at tire size, they're all running a 305/325 series tire. Huge, huge rubber on these cars because they know they want to get the traction underneath them. But it's I guess I get more pissed off, like I said, with the peanut gallery that they just want to bitch and they have no reference point other than I'm just going to jump on the bandwagon because it doesn't have a HEMI in it.
It's pretty much that. It's too big. Like I went through just prior to this and just scanned some forums, and I wanted to see all the complaints that I could find in a half hour, and I found them, plenty of them. Um, nobody's happy with the Charger name. They're, whatever. Why didn't they call it? One of the biggest ones that actually irritates me is like, why didn't they call it, say, Coronet or something? It makes no sense. There's no brand recognition.
Who knows what a Coronet is? This is
Exactly.
2024. It's not 1968.
Exactly.
Nobody knows what the hell a Coronet is.
There's, they're concerned about overpriced. Again, I mean, some of these are valid. It may cost too much. You're not in the
I
market.
get it. I mean, my first car was a second generation Lightning, and then when Ford came out with the new Lightning, I'm like, no, that's not what it is. But again, I didn't make the Lightning. They get to name it. They own it.
There you go.
But I hoped for this performance model that was the single cab. I could still, like, somehow, like, I wake up sometimes smelling the suede inserts from my 1999 SVT. It has a special place in my heart, and I totally do sympathize with people that look at a new model that isn't what they love, that has the same name. They're like, no, that's not what it is. You just have to divorce yourself from the name because it doesn't matter. It's there.
But you see, but I'm good. See, I'm good with the name because if you look at the style of this car, take a 1969 Charger and put it next to this new model. Okay. You have similar silhouette. You have a similar silhouette. You have cues from a 69 Charger. You have cues of the 99 concept car that came out, right? So the designers looked at a lot. They understand nostalgia because these guys, this is what they do. And I will tell you from experience, they're all died in these are car guys, man. These people are no joke, right? The engineers behind this thing, these men and women know exactly what they're doing and they want to give us what they want. So I get really annoyed with all the backlash because one, 2-door, 4-door, they've got you covered. They listened, they delivered. Okay. Yes, they wanted to do an EV. So they did it. But you know what? They also listened. Why? Because they gave you an ICE version. And they gave you an ICE version that's going to have, big power. We know that. I mean, the crappy version has 420 horsepower. And that's the base version is 420. So
if you can't have fun with 420 horsepower, you're just not trying. Just straight up the point.
Well, that's just it. And you know what? You want to do a drift, you want to do donuts, you want to do burnouts. They gave you the option. Turn the all-wheel drive off, make it rear-wheel drive, and do that. Now, how are all these systems going to work? None of us are going to know until we properly drive the car, right? But when you look at the specs and when you look at what they're telling us, they've hit on every key point that every enthusiast should love. And this is why it really annoys me when people constantly bitch that they're not getting what they want, especially when they never had any intention of purchasing the car in the first place. And I'm not saying that for all, but we all know if, out of all the comments and everything else, maybe 20 or 30% of these people are actual buyers, right?
Right. I mean, that's the 48, 72 hour, I hate it because it's new cycle. And, just it will calm down after that. All of a sudden, someone will see. I mean, look at the Cybertruck. You saw it on the road, and you're like, I guess it's not as awful as I thought it was. Look at the Charger. That's actually a decent looking car. People are going to see the real world and go, oh, I like this. Or maybe I overreacted. I think that's the biggest part of new model reveals is it's always an overreaction. No matter how subtly different the car is, it's new, hate it. And then you kind of take a breath and go, yeah, it's not that bad. And then all of a sudden that transitions to, I actually like it.
I agree. And
changed up a lot. They changed their logo, and even that's a problem for some people.
Again, the Fratzog came back, right?
Yeah.
And when you say that, like Bryan, you and I know what that is because we've been around Mopar for a long time. But the majority of the people, if you're under 40, God, you probably don't have a clue what that is.
You don't know, but it does. Is it better than 2 slashes? In my eyes, yes. To some, no.
The good pet.
Quite a few people, a lot of them thought it was the Mitsubishi logo. I'm not kidding. That was one of the comments. Somebody at Dodge went, you know what, this slash thing, that does not work. Let's pull
Right.
something back.
Right.
And that's not a bad place to pull from. That is from the heyday of the muscle car. It's not like they just chose that randomly. There's a
Right.
Right.
lot of thought that's been put into these cars that are coming out. Two-door, four-door, the hatchback is gorgeous. I love the way
Yeah.
they integrated it. There's nothing lost in the looks in my eyes. They maintain it kind of 68, 69 nose, the 70
Mhm.
tail, everything you want. So
Yeah.
what really is the problem?
Why do
Well,
people? I've never understood that. Like,
but why do they hate four doors?
just doors in general. Like, oh, there's too many
I,
doors. I hate
dude,
it.
I posted up that the one that I would get, and this is true, right? An EV doesn't fit in my lifestyle because
Yeah.
I either drive 10 miles a day or I drive 400. There's generally no in between, right? So I don't want to deal with that. But you know what? The ICE version, give me, and I wrote this out there. I said, give me a white one, four door, blacked out roof, hood, and tail. I will be the happiest guy on the planet because for me, and this was proven when they introduced the four door Charger, that is a combination that works beautifully. I could still put people in the back. Now I'll have even more storage room and more usability because of the hatchback, right? With the HO, you'll get, you know, 550 horsepower, which is people need to also look at this, okay? Horsepower, all these numbers, we are living in the golden age of horsepower. A a two-wheel drive 1,000 horsepower car is a useless machine on the street. 100% useless on the street. I don't care who's out there and who wants to battle with me on that. I'll die on that hill. Useless machine, okay? All-wheel drive with 550 horsepower, usable, right? Put your
Uh,
foot down, hook up and
Certain
go.
times don't lie.
And with selectable all-wheel drive, if you're that concerned about not being able, it's there. They gave you that option too.
Right.
What's the loss?
So, what do you think when they come out? What is, if you have concerns about it, what are they? What is your biggest, like, what are things you don't like about the car?
I think off the jump, it's the way they laid out the dash. I am not a fan of this whole tablet for gauges, tablet for HVAC, tablet for radio thing.
Right.
The newest vehicle, we just bought a 22 Ram not too long ago, and I insisted that it did not have that gigantic 12 point whatever sized tablet
Screen.
in the dash. I want a gauge collector pod. I don't like the glare. I don't like the kind of it seems cheap. It feels really weird from a standpoint.
Yeah.
That's a fair call, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
I, lo
Um,
I love that there's going to be an ICE motor. I
mhm.
know, from past work experience and just being in this industry that there's going to be 100+ horsepower tune for it within 3 months,
Right.
which is that's amazing that we could do that kind of thing these days.
Yeah.
But I would love to see a third pedal option. You're giving us the ICE motor. It's all there. It's rear wheel drive. Like, come on, give us the third pedal, even if it's for, a select trim level. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to be around forever, but like if this is the last bastion of ICE cars that are good, give me a stick. Give me a 6 speed. It's like you have it there,
Mhm.
so attainable. Just stick a
You know
66.
what?
That'd be
I,
cool.
I agree with that. I think the coupe warrants it, right? I can
Yeah.
understand four doors generally you wouldn't get a four door with a manual.
I have a four-door SUV with a manual,
Well, you
so
do. Well, that's true. But I think you're right, Evan. I think a manual option in this would be kind of a neat thing. I mean, but if you here's the thing, if you go look at the take rate on manual Challengers, I don't know it, but I know it's probably
I'm
only,
sure it's small.
It's low.
yeah.
Another one that I'd like to throw out, and this one actually did surprise me. We have EV and you
Mhm.
have the inline six. Why did they not go after a hybrid style?
That's a good point. I had that same thought with Mike the other day.
Yeah.
Like, the person buying the gas car is buying it because they don't ever want to sit at a charger and they want to have the freedom to go as far as they want to go for as long as they want to do it. And I totally love that. I think the hybrid thing could have filled a niche in the middle.
Mhm.
My family's owned
I
a hybrid
agree.
before.
It would have been a great base model line.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
free
and I
as far as you want, and pick up some efficiency in the in between.
Mhm.
I agree with that. And here's the thing, like I like the idea. I mean, listen, I don't own a hybrid, but I absolutely would own a hybrid, right? I don't own a hybrid just because I don't have any new cars, but it makes sense, right? As a daily driver, if you have that extended range because you're using that technology, but I don't have to sit at a charger for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, I just made that statement. I'm going to get crucified, and people are going to be like, "It's only 15 minutes." Whatever. Shut up. It's 30
It
minutes in a
depends
minute.
largely on a lot of factors. Where
A
you are,
lot of factors.
how fast the charger is, how
Yeah.
depleted the batteries are.
Mhm.
Like, yeah. No, it's a fair statement.
But I agree with you. I think a hybrid option would have been very cool, and I think a manual option um, would have been great too. That's a good question about the hybrid, man. I don't know why
Because,
they didn't do that.
well, I speak from experience. My daily beater is a 2017 Chevy Volt. During the summer months, because we all know batteries flux with temperature, I've got 50 miles on EV alone, which is enough for me to run
Crazy.
around town, do errands, and I never touch the fuel. Vice versa, I can go into settings, flip one selection, and I can drive that car cross country, and I have repeatedly with no problems.
Hmm.
In the years that I've owned it, the only thing I've replaced on it are tires. The end.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it gets 40 some miles per. I know it's a Volt and it's small, yes. But if you showed me something that looks like that charger that could pull that same trick, have that same kind of range and that same kind of ease of use, yet I can make it look, I got all the colors, I got any stripe package, any wheel option I wanted. You damn straight
Right.
can look at that.
Yeah.
Mm,
I think you're right.
I think the greater populace of the country looks at cars like appliances, right? It's
Mhm.
no different than a dishwasher or a washing machine. That's what you're buying.
Right.
You know, so if we can allow that group to get what they need to save money on gas, to have efficient, non-polluting vehicles, and that pays for us to have,
Sure.
for the enthusiasts at those companies to generate one or two models that keep us happy. I mean, I have, there's that whole F your Prius mentality, and I've never subscribed to it because it's like that guy doesn't care about cars. Let him
Right.
have, because that lets me have the thing that I love,
Yeah.
it's 10 miles per gallon. Let him
Yeah.
offset my passion, and I won't fault that person.
But
You
No,
let's
know,
also
I
look at
agree.
it like this. If it's an appliance, you don't buy the most basic B appliance there is. You go for what you want that looks good, that operates the way you want. And yes, most people look at cars as appliances. I'm well versed in that. But if you can have the same appliance be everything to everyone, nobody buys the most plain Jane vanilla thing unless they're trying to hide or unless they're that cheap. So if you have, you know, you want a cloth interior, you want leather, you want it white, silver,
Yeah.
neon green with flashing strobe lights, I don't care as long as it performs, which is the main thing that seems to be kind of our mentality and a lot of enthusiast mentality. I want the thing to perform most of all. I want it to have that jump. I want it to give me that thrill. I want it to live longer than 5 seconds. And I want it to look good years down the road after the payments are done. And now it's something that I haven't kept. I don't know. That's a little bit of rambling on my part, but that's kind of where it's at.
No, I think it makes perfect sense. And I mean, I think, all of us here right now are in a very fortunate position, right? We all have multiple vehicles that we can go out and choose from. But what I find interesting is that we all drive somewhat sensible things. Brian, you're going to take the win on this one with the Vault, right? But that doesn't change the fact that you have a muscle car, right? You
Mhm.
have something that just excites your passion. But on a day-to-day basis, to get into your Vault, and like you said, 50 miles of electric charge, does everything that you want it to do. It's reliable. It's got space. Perfect. Evan, you're Xterra. Is it going to win a race? Probably not. But you know
no,
what? It
no.
still works, and it's a manual, and it's a fun car to drive. And for me, like my Bronco, it doesn't do anything well, but I just like it. But we look at these things where very few people, unless you only have one car, are driving 700 horsepower cars every day, right? They're not overly fun to sit in traffic with and do all that stuff. And again, I feel like if you can
It's
go out there and buy something that just is your little beater for the day or whatever, that's great. But I think these cars fit the thing. But to both your points, the hybrid version, that would have been, man,
the coup.
And it remains to be seen. They could still be making it. You know,
correct.
We talk about us having multiple cars, and I mean, I know for Brian and I, it's by virtue of our ability to resurrect old, dead things and be a mechanic on our own
Sure.
time. You look at someone that doesn't have that skill set, that whole two-door versus four-door debate, they can't afford two cars. I can have a two-door GTO
Right.
because I can park it in the garage and build it over 7 years, with my
Right.
skill and largely not paying anyone to do anything other than buying parts. But for the person that can't do that, they have to pick the thing that meets all of their requirements because they don't
Right.
get, so for that person, how do you not have a four-door car?
Yeah.
If you want to have a family, you have a pet that you take with you, you want to go places, carry stuff. It's great that they're offering a two-door. I just completely understand who they're offering it for with the four-door, because how do you
Yeah.
not? You can only afford one car. It's got to be the jack of all trades.
Right.
You
No, I
can't take.
totally agree. Well, so, it's, the more we talk about this thing, I think we can all agree that it's an interesting car. I think we all actually really like it. I mean, I enjoy the styling of it, both front and rear. And I think, to your point, I mean, there's going to be a tune for these things within 15 minutes, right? And the other part is, Dodge is going to come out with different versions and different tunes and all that stuff, and they'll sell through direct connection and everything else. But I just like the idea that they gave us so many different choices with these cars.
Yeah.
And, yes, fine, there's no hybrid. Yes, there's no manual yet. But that
But those
doesn't
are
mean
reasonable arguments.
they are 100%, 100%. Um, I have a feeling these cars are going to sell. I have a feeling these cars are going to sell. Like, a lot of the comments that I got was nobody asked for it, nobody wanted it. And it's like, well, sure, but have you seen the amount of Teslas that are on the road right now? Have you seen the amount of hybrids that are on the road right now? The amount of EVs? Yeah, I think the biggest thing is putting anything electric next to the word muscle car. I think that's where people are really kind of getting twisted. Um, as far as I'm concerned, if it puts a smile on my face and everything, this goes back to your point, it puts a smile on my face and makes me giggle. I could care less about manufactured sound because who cares? I mean, who cares? Like, it's the same thing. Like, my Bronco right now is totally silent. When I put another muffler on it, it's not going to, increase performance. It's going to sound better. I don't care if it's manufactured. Put a speaker in the car. Doesn't matter to me.
Electric muscle car is cognitive dissonance right now. We have not accepted the fact that something can get, incredible efficiency, be incredibly fast, have torque, do all these things that we associate with a muscle car, but also be a highly efficient, vehicle where we'll get there. It's just
Hmm.
people have to get butts in seats and realize that, oh, like, I know I came from the 80s. I know that I remember cars that got great mileage that had sub 100 horsepower. And I think of these two things as never touching, but these roads have crossed, and it's just going to take people driving them, experiencing them, and going, wow, maybe this isn't the enemy. And I'm not somebody that is fully subscribed to EVs of the future. I'm completely behind, the announcement Toyota made that, we can make a hybrid vehicle that,
Hmm.
better fuel economy, makes better emissions, the lifetime of the vehicle, it does less damage to the planet. I completely do not think that we are in a position where everyone can go EV tomorrow and it's going to be the best thing for everyone. It's
Hmm.
not. And I'm really happy to see that Dodge is kind of acknowledging the same thing and going, hey, we have this, but we also have this.
Right. Brian?
I think Evan just hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of people who have not actually experienced it. They're just, all they know is electric must mean bad because between the onset of the Prius, the onset of hybrids, which has always been a dirty word since it showed up,
Hmm.
and the kind of influence that Tesla Roddy vocab where this is the way, it must be the way, that turned a lot of people off, and it shouldn't have. Um, we pointed out earlier, Evan and I's involvement with Holly's EV show that we did in Sonoma. There was an incident. It was a company called Cascadian Motors. They brought out this little thing that basically looks like a go-kart on severe steroid kick. It took off, and you watched everybody in the drag tower completely shut up because it did a 9 point something drag ET with all four wheels fully ablaze.
Oh yeah, it cooked
Completely.
all four tires about half track and still posted to a 9.
It was like an Adam Sandler movie. You heard a unified "What the f" Everybody's staring at the window, and I ran down there. I was like, what happened? And the guy goes, oh, I forgot to tone down the torque. Give me a second. I'll do it again. And yeah, he did. Just about an 8 second.
That's
That's where we're
nuts.
at now. And if you tell me that that kind of reliability and fun factor isn't for you, you may as well just go ahead and turn this podcast off at this point.
Just haven't done it
It's,
yet.
Yeah.
it's nothing's going to do it for you.
You think it's a cartoon, and you're gonna realize the moment you put your butt in that seat that it's not fake, and this is
Right.
real numbers, and your retinas are gonna touch the back of your skull.
There is something both oddly strange and absolutely hilarious about watching a Rivian truck and a Lucid Air neck and neck down a quarter mile.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's
Totally,
there.
totally agree. Yeah.
It's-
I think, I think, closing this thing out, we're in great times, right? You could still go out and you could still buy that ICE version of the car that you want. You could still go out and you can buy the EV version, or you can buy the hybrid version, you can buy whatever. You can still go out and buy anything because it's all still available in 2024 and still will be in 2025, right? If you want a red eye, go out and buy one. They're still on lots. If you want a two-door Challenger, buy one. If you want a four-door Charger, go buy one. If you want a Demon, go buy one. If you want a Corvette, go buy one. If you want a Corvette hybrid, go buy one. You have every single choice any gearhead, any enthusiast could possibly want right now. This is it. We are in the total golden age. What you really can't do is bitch because there's something out there for you, right? You can
Got a
you can
60-year head start on it not being rusty.
exactly. So like, stop the bitching, really do some research on the car you want. I think all of us have made decent points about why this new car, why this new Charger has pros and not all pros. Yes, it's got some cons to it too. But don't discount it. And what I would really do is I would applaud Dodge for trying to give you everything that you wanted and understand, more importantly, the reason why they couldn't give you certain things. Right. So otherwise, I don't
Not
know.
end time.
What?
But it's not the end times that people are making it out to be.
No, not at all. Not at all. So guys, any other closing sentiments on these things?
Test drive something EV, go to an event, go to an autocross, these things are everywhere. Go sit in something with instant torque and see if it reevaluates, your thought process on why these things are the devil.
And if that doesn't do it for you, it's not like you don't have years upon years of things that you can go buy and enjoy. These cars were produced for almost 2 decades, and there's plenty of older that you can just spend that same exact new car money you're complaining about and build something that is to your standard and is to your liking.
That's exactly correct. With that said, and to Brian's point, if you do want something, obviously we are Hemmings. We are the world's biggest collector car marketplace. Go out there, go to our website. And here's another thing that you might not know. We have a killer event series coming up this year. We've got 4 events. The first one is kicking off actually next month at Maple Grove Raceway in Pennsylvania from it's April 13th. Go to the event if you're around. Check us out. We've got a drag strip. We've got vendors. We've got shows and burnout boxes and all this other fun stuff. Make sure you head over. Please join us. I'll be there. I think we'll all be there. And it's going to be a great time. But like we said, if you're looking for that car, head over to Hemmings.com. Check out the auctions, classifieds, make offer, and do what you want. Otherwise, Brian, Evan, thank you guys so much for joining in. It is always a pleasure. I don't know. That's all we got on the Dodge Charger, the 2024 Dodge Charger. Trust me, when it hits the roads and we drive it, these 3 people will be back on and we will be talking about it again. So,
Sounds good.
thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.